Han Lin is an ugly, lonely orphan who lost his mother in a car accident and was left with his father's gambling debt. While celebrating his 18th birthday, God broke into his apartment and teleported him to the spiritual world, giving him the War God system. This system will unleash his godlike potential, unlocking a cheat skill to level him up faster than everyone in this world. And because of his spiritual eyes, God gave him a recommendation letter to study at the top magic academy. But before leaving, God asked if Han Lin was truly worth doing this for, but flew off laughing because he finally got rid of his unlucky curse. The spirit of the War God system appeared and commands him to help the human stuck inside of the teleportation portal. Han Lin raises his hand and tries to absorb the enormous energy, but the hottest girl appears from inside and steps on top of him. She helps him up and introduces herself as Xiaolin, but tells him that they must hurry, so she drags him into the portal. And Han Lin realizes that his life is finally going to get better. Inside the Magic Academy, they notice everyone rushing to take the aptitude exam, a test that decides a person's class from 1 to 100 by touching a mirror called the Lustrous Divine Monolith. And they see a man named Cheng unleashing the greatest aura. Next is Xiaolin's turn, and she touches the monolith, releasing an enormous amount of energy descending from the heavens. She was also assigned first class, but Han Lin's turn finally arrived. He handed the instructor his recommendation letter, and she was shocked to find that it's from Master Lu, the legendary master that achieved immortality above gods. The numerology instructor assesses his power and announces to all of his peers that Han Lin will bring miracles that shock the entire spirit world. All of his peers chant his name, and Han Lin knows he's going to finally be an anime protagonist. However, this is a Chinese anime, so he achieves the greatest miracle of all. Throughout all of history, he's the only person to ever have no magical power, and he's going to enter the highest class. All of the students are outraged, so one of them screams that he's a cheater and wants to fight him. But Xiaolin grabs him and starts flying away, apologizing because she's brought all this hate upon him, but promises that she will protect him from now on. Later that night, Han Lin investigates his War God system to see how he can level up. The system gives him a list of cheat quests that would help him level up a year's worth by completing a few tasks. The first quest involves the host completing 10 push-ups, so Han Lin cranks them out with ease. Immediately, the system levels him up and upgrades him to the first stage, and his strength dramatically increases, allowing him to do push-ups with a single finger. For his second quest, he needs to do 10 plus 10 push-ups, so Han Lin completes the 20 push-ups. He levels up to the second stage immediately, and the next quest is to do 10 times 10 push-ups. Han Lin completes them with inhuman speeds due to his new strength. To upgrade to the fourth stage, he needs to do 10 to the 10 push-ups, a total of 1 billion. Han Lin realizes that it would take him 1,000 years of doing it, so the system offers him the hint. Xiaolin might be able to give him some advice, so Han Lin decides to head out to meet with her. While leaving his house, he's glad to have such an amazing cheat leveling system, but a mysterious spy tries to ambush him. With his spirit eyes, Han Lin quickly uses his reflexes to dodge the strikes. The enemy's speed nearly overwhelms Han Lin, and even though he can see the trajectory of his strikes, blocking them still sends him crashing against the fence. With a dash of speed, he vanishes and begins dizzying his opponent, flashing next to him to land a devastating strike. He asks the man why he ambushed him, and he realizes it's Dabao, the guy from earlier. Dabao wonders how Han Lin reached the third stage already and activates a talisman. The system warns him that his life is in danger, and the talisman's energy prevents him from moving. The system encourages him to use a last resort risky option. The seal's energy disperses throughout the field, and Dabao sends the mana hurling towards Han Lin, but a sword strike destroys it. Xiaolin appears and prevents him from moving, and Han Lin is excited to see her. However, they hear a man's voice screaming for Han Lin, and they see the real Dabao trying to challenge him. Shocked by what they're witnessing, the imposter vanishes in front of Xiaolin and tries to strike her, but Han Lin fends off the blow. A red aura appears as it absorbs the opponent's energy, and Han Lin casts his heavenly gateway, allowing Xiaolin to strike towards the opponent and causing him to flee. The backlash of the move destroys Han Lin's core, and he struggles to breathe, thinking that he will break. Dabao has finally found Han Lin to challenge him, but Xiaolin sends the fear of God into his soul, and he runs away. She tells him that she will take care of him. He says he meant he will break through the fourth stage, and she's glad she heard him wrong. They stare at the sky together, and she apologizes for putting him in danger. She reveals that she came to this academy for a reason. She's always wanted to obtain the powers of protecting someone. and wishes to protect An Lin until the day he becomes amazing. She promises she won't make any mistakes, and An Lin grabs her hand. The status of their bond increases to 60%, and the status of love at first sight has changed to sleeping on the first night. And my jokes are probably giving you a fright, but it's okay because An Lin has the strongest might. The next day, An Lin struggles to stay awake. The fear of having another person ambushing him kept him up all night, and when he tried telling the instructor, she warned him that he's everyone's enemy, and she will also be extra strict on him. He notices people are speaking slyly, and the system encourages him to use his spirit eyes to hear closely. Every single one of them wants to beat him up, and they want to steal Xiaolin away from him. At class, An Lin is shocked that the instructor is a teacher, but waifu number 2 enters the chat. An Lin is shocked that he can't see her level, and Xiaolin is glad that he only cares about her level and not her beauty. An Lin gets a better look and thinks he wants her in his harem. She walks past him and gives him an affectionate stare. Poor Xiaolin is getting c***ed. Cheng walks in and the guy behind them thinks he wants to swing the other way and try it for a day, because a man a day keeps the doctor away. And these shitty rhymes are probably driving you astray. Cheng gives him a cold glance, and An Lin thinks it's unfair because they've got great faces. But he tells Xiaolin that she's hot as well, but he's not jealous of her. Xiaolin didn't see that one coming, and the class commences. Everyone begins meditating, and An Lin has no idea what's going on, but uses his spiritual eyes to see their auras levitating towards the heavens. It's unfortunate that he isn't able to learn, but Xiaolin promises that she'll tutor him after class and give him a very hands-on lesson in anatomy. Throughout the day, An Lin wonders why all his instructors are inanimate objects, but Miss Giant Plot finally enters. An Lin is glad to see some legs walking, and the instructor appoints him as the representative of the class. They will be learning of the mortal world, and she gives everyone a phone, telling them to play with their phones for the rest of class. An Lin notices how distracted everyone is, and gets angry because he's not learning anything. She tells him to be glad that they're just getting to play games all day, but An Lin wishes he was learning something. The numerology course begins, and the instructor is finally teaching them like a proper class. He then goes on to say that they will go to sleep for the entire class and write down their dreams. He counts to 3 and An Lin begins falling asleep, but the last words he heard from the instructor were that a bloodbath was waiting for him after waking up. An Lin tries to come back to consciousness by hearing a heavenly woman's voice, but when he wakes up, he sees Xiaolin trying to wake him up. It's magic class now, and the instructor is going to hold a magic duel to help everyone cultivate their magic. An Lin realizes that everyone's going to try beating him. The instructor calls Cheng up, the class monitor, and then calls An Lin up for the duel. The words of the numerology professor finally make sense, and he walks towards the challenge. Xiaolin stops him and begins trying to spar against Cheng instead. She casts a fireball, but Cheng blocks it with his bare hand. Her agility allows her to backstep into a kick, but after he blocks it, she sprints away to try and flank him with her fire blows, but he gracefully evades and strikes her back. She continues relentlessly trying to strike him, but his agility stops all of her attacks. A fiery aura engulfs her body, and she flies into the sky, creating a phoenix from the flames. She rushes towards Cheng, but he activates his secret ability, and a water dome forms, preventing Xiaolin from penetrating. The system informs An Lin that he should observe closely, and with his spiritual eyes, he notices the weakness in the formation. Xiaolin unleashes a flurry of fireballs and rushes towards him, striking down to crack the dome. However, Cheng says she hasn't cultivated enough, and his magic circle activates above Xiaolin, crushing her down with a gravitational attack. An Lin rushes in, utilizing Heavenly Gateway and sending a massive energy explosion. Cheng is shocked that he's still standing, and An Lin casts a red aura onto his hand. Cheng tells him to surrender, but An Lin thinks that delivering a single punch will avoid him receiving 100 punches. He hurls the mana sphere towards Cheng, but he dodges it with ease. Cheng gathers his magical chains and restrains An Lin along with Xiaolin. The gravitational circle activates once more, forcing An Lin down. However, he smiles, breaking the chains. Cheng notices the destruction in his formation, and realizes that it was his plan all along. An Lin destroys the chains with a golden glow, having reached 4th stage in the middle of the battle. He loses his footing, and the system informs him that leveling up will be different now. For level 5 to 7, he will need to obtain 10, 10 plus 10, and then 10 times 10 spiritual stones. The teacher dismisses the class, and Cheng approaches him, saying that he will help him advance his cultivation if he ever needs help. Taking advantage of the offer, An Lin asks if he can have 130 spiritual stones, and Xiaolin thinks it's embarrassing that he's asking others for money. This is all news to An Lin, so he apologizes quickly, but Cheng takes his hand and hands him 1,000 spiritual stones and walks out like a Giga Chad. He asks An Lin if he's also a military nerd on the Burning Iron forum, and reveals that he's the sub-moderator. This guy is literally a Reddit mod, so the status window appears, giving them the status of butt buddies. With a guy in An Lin's harem, love interest number 2 approaches and introduces herself as Suzu. An Lin asks her if she could be his girlfriend, but she rejects him because he's too ugly and says she was hoping they could be friends. An Lin tries to play it off cool, but the status forms their bond, giving him the status of stuck in the friend zone. The battle for freedom is upcoming, and the War God system gives An Lin the special mission. If he manages to rank in the top 50, the system will give him a draw at the initial singularity for a random mythical item. However, if An Lin fails, he will be transformed into a pretty girl for a year. He is the only person in the world with these conditions, and cannot reject the quest unless he gets isekai. He springs up from the nightmare and realizes that he can't keep procrastinating, so he immediately consumes all the spiritual stones, leveling up 3 times in the process. With his newfound super speed, he tries to create a strategy for conquering the battle for freedom, and investigates the map. There will be more than 50,000 people battling against him, and he realizes that he's basically playing real-life Fortnite. But with his current abilities, his rank is all the way near the bottom. Realizing how depressing his situation is, he thinks that he needs to start making arrangements to become a pretty girl, so the next day, he asks Xiaolin if he can become her girl best friend. She's disgusted by his idea, and he tries to play it off like he's joking, knowing how weird he just sounded. All of his friends wonder why he's been acting weird lately, but An Lin has had enough of this embarrassment and pain. He asks the system to give him any quests so he can continue holding on to his dignity. Because of his determination, the system gives him his next quest. In order to reach the 8th stage, he must defeat an opponent from the 9th stage, but An Lin thinks that it would be impossible to defeat someone like Xiaolin. So in the meantime, he decides to complete some side quests to learn god-level magic. One of them involves collecting the essence of the mountain, but since he's never heard of that, he tries to think of a way to cheat the system. To reach the 9th stage, he thinks he can get Xiaolin to lose to him on purpose, so the following morning, he tries asking her for help. Xiaolin says she's willing to do anything to help him. After all, he's saved her countless times, and in her heart, he's the best person alive. Flustered after hearing her words, he hesitantly asks her for the essence of the mountain instead. After failing, he tried asking Cheng to help him, but he rejected, saying he would only reveal his weakness for a sneak attack because they're best butt buddies. Hearing his words, An Lin knew he could never betray a butt buddy, so he decides to ask Xiaolin one more time. At the most beautiful spot in campus, An Lin gets on his knees and tells Xiaolin that he's been meaning to say this to her, but wanted to build up courage first. She asks him what it is. Xiaolin wonders if he's just lying because he's too nervous to confess, and begins blushing once he's done talking. She tells him that he can of course sneak an attack on her pussy. Sorry, I meant she tells him he can sneak an attack on her. That night, Cheng thinks An Lin can definitely defeat her, but wants to prepare him by teaching him his secret moves. The first technique will be to bind her like it's 50 Shades of Grey. During their meeting the next day, An Lin tells her that he's ready to sneak attack her, but she gets up and walks away before he gets too close. She's brought him the essences he's asked for, but he sees her vulnerable position and activates his magic, tying her down with his chains.
Sensational.
He tries to explain the misunderstanding, but she runs away screaming, and he thinks he won't ever wash his hands again. She turns around and throws the gift she's brought him, calling him a jerk. He goes back to Cheng and cries for being so stupid. After he was done crying, he saw the information Xiaolin prepared for him. While reading it, he ate the mountain essence, seeing the location tracker she'd created so she can protect him. He wishes he wasn't such a jerk and wants to go apologize, but his stomach starts hurting because the essence is trying to detoxify his insides. Inside the bathroom, the status system informs him that he will have diarrhea for the next 13 days. The battle for freedom is